What is ham radio? So it's basically a non-commercial communications over radio waves by users licensed by the FCC here in the United States, hence the term amateur in its name for non-commercial use. Ever wondered where the term ham comes from? So ham was a station call sign, and this is a legend apparently. So it's a station call sign of the first amateur wireless stations operated by some of the amateurs of the Harvard Radio Club. They were the first letters of the three members, Hyman, Almy, and Murray, spelled out H-A-M. Turns out this is really not the case. Apparently, Harvard College Wireless Club W1AF members researched this story and found no evidence of such call sign or members mentioned, even obtaining a copy of the congressional record for the date in question. So it seems like an urban legend, but, a good story nonetheless. So why get into ham radio? It's also another form of communications without the need for an existing infrastructure, such as landline, cell phones, or internet. It also offers generally longer range communications than your CB or your FRS radios, these family radio service radios. And also, there's more accountability and etiquette since your call sign is directly tied to your name. So the reason, I guess, to get into ham radio is to give back to the community in terms of involvement in organizations such as emergency communications like ARES, which stands for Amateur Radio Emergency Service. And also there's one called RACES, R-A-C-E-S, which is Radio Amateur Civil Emergency Services. The other nice thing about getting into ham radio is to also assist in volunteering for public service with radio communications to large public events such as marathons, charity bike rides, or what have you. The other nice thing about ham is just to stay in contact with your Jeep buddies when overlanding or off-roading, where cell service may not be available. And that's really handy to have, because a lot of times if you're going off-road or what have you, you're going to be miles from any infrastructure in terms of cell service. And then some fun things to do with ham radio. Contesting is a big thing, which is you make as many radio contacts as you can within a given period of time with other hams. So you collect awards, You can communicate with astronauts aboard the International Space Station, communicate with other hams via orbiting satellite network, participate in fox hunts, which is a locate hidden transmitter with direction finding techniques, send and receive text and email over radio through internet connected nodes, and send and receive messages in Morse code, also known as CW. So you don't necessarily need a ham license to buy, own, or listen on a ham radio, but you certainly do want to transmit. So once you press the transmit key, then you better have a license or else you're violating FCC rules. And so the ham radio license tests are given by local ham club members, also called VEs or volunteer examiners. You pay a $15 fee to take the test. Once you pass, they submit the paperwork to the FCC for filing. You'll know shortly after taking the exam before you leave if you passed or not. And if you're pretty close, they'll let you take it over again. You could also take, if you pass the technician's class, then you can go to the next one. It's called general. And then if you go further, you can take the extra. So there are people that have known to take all three in one sitting. So in this day and age of COVID, online testing also been introduced, where it's proctored over the web via video and screen sharing, which allows them to monitor keystrokes and mouse clicks. So to prepare for your test, I recommend the ARRL, which stands for American Radio League, which is the National Association for Amateur Radio website. For their website, check out their website and their study guidebooks for each class license you want to take. Basic radio electronic theory and operating practices are covered. So basically, there are three classes of license in the operating here in the United States: technician, general, and amateur extra. So the tech license or technician, primarily VHF, UHF band operating privileges, and that's a 35 multiple choice test questions. And this is pretty handy, generally if you want to get into like handheld transceivers, if you want to use walkie-talkie style. So yeah, it's all you really need for that. They're pretty portable, but limited to around 5 watts of power, thus limiting range and communicating via repeater stations greatly increases their range. So that's kind of nice. So if you have a repeater at a mountaintop, it'll push out your signal further out. Many search and rescue personnel and those volunteering radio communications for large public events such as the Boston Marathon and MS-150 ride are ham radio operators. So general class gets you into the HF bands, which lends itself to lower bands used in making long-distance worldwide contacts. This is where the sweet spot in terms of license to acquire, to enjoy the ham hobby in general. Of course, you'll have to have passed a technician's class license before getting a general class, so they kind of piggyback off each other. And then amateur extra, which is the final journey in the licensing, gives you the most operating privileges on amateur bands. You don't necessarily need the extra class license to fully partake in ham radio, but of course you'll have to have the previous 2 classes to get that. The other nice thing about if you get the extra class is you're able to get a shorter call sign. They call it like a 1x2 or 2x1s. So bottom line on licensing is that if you only want to use the handheld HTs for short range radio communications or repeater access, and you want to participate in search and rescue or public service radio comms at large events, then a technician license is all you really need. If you want to be able to make point-to-point radio contact with someone in the next state or across the globe, then you will need to get a general class license when you're operating radio to radio. However, now in the day of digital, if you have a digital node connected to the internet, and if they're not connected to the internet, you can talk to anyone across the world as well. So once you pass your test, you're issued a call sign, which is good for 10 years, and it's like an alphanumeric 6-character long, which is generated for the next available letter sequence and number assigned to your area. So, and you'll have to renew after that to keep it up, but you don't have to retake any tests to get that. You can keep your original issued call sign even after you've advanced further into general or extra class. You can also apply for vanity call sign, which you can pick from available call signs, and even pick shorter ones when you advance up to the extra class, such as a 1x2 or 2x1. So when I first started my technician class, I was assigned KC1 MRP, and then the number 1 denotes the region that you're in. So I'm in the Northeast, so that's 1. And then later I was able to get a vanity call sign that happened to be available, which, you know, lines up with my name better. Okay, let's talk about equipment and radios. So basically, in my opinion, there are 3 types of ham radios. So you have the HTs, or the portable ones. Even they call them walkie-talkie style. The range is less than 10 miles due to the 5-watt power output and antenna design. So these little rubber duck antennas, they do the job, but they're not the greatest. You can get an external antenna that'll boost your range a little bit. And then the next class you got are called mobile radios. And those are the ones that are vehicle mounted. This is a ICOM IC7100, which is the mobile. This is just the head and the microphone here. There's a whole another piece that connects to the radio itself. But this you can mount it pretty much anywhere. It's kind of nice in your vehicle. So they're usually installed in vehicles, more power output than handheld portables, and a wider frequency transmit and receive range with up to 100 watts. Mobile stations are more portable versions of the base station, in my opinion. The base station is the next one. So the base stations are found in ham shacks, which are larger, more featured, and higher power options with amplifiers up to 1,500 watts of output here allowed in the US. Home base stations also consist of having an external antenna, either strung in a tree or freestanding tower setup, which are capable of talking to the world using HF bands. Yeah, so communicating over long distances, especially across the globe, is not consistent since the atmosphere conditions and the time of day will bounce and scatter your radio signal around. So propagation and radio skip is to thank for that. So you may not be able to talk to the same person reliably on a day-to-day basis, like picking up a cell phone. But you may luck out if both of you have huge antennas or huge towers, antenna systems with massive power going through. But even then, there's no guarantee. The state of ham radio today. So amateur radio has been declining throughout the years. And I think in an effort to attract users, FCC, as mentioned before, taken steps to lower the barrier of entry, such as elimination of Morse code back in 2007 as part of the testing process. Not many getting into ham radio due to their perceived obsolete old school radio-based technology and unfashionable reputation. The internet and smartphone with chat pretty much killed the idea of ham radio for most youngsters nowadays, in my humble opinion. Hate to say it, but you're not going to impress anybody or your date by phonetically spelling out your amateur call sign. Well, maybe. Although with the digital modes catching on, younger tech-savvy computer generation are getting into it more and more. Attracting younger, more diverse hams will be the key to the hobby's long-term survival. So that's pretty much it, guys. Just my quick overview of ham radio, and if you're interested in getting into it. I hope to make more videos if I see any interest in it, to share my journey along the adventures of amateur radio. All right, guys. See you guys later. Bye.